Hello and welcome to the Mind Shift Experiment, episode 8. And we have the best episode in store for you. We have one of our amazing guests back, one of our amazing guest, April, back because, April, the feedback that we've gotten already from episode 3, I mean, I hear about it all day, every day.
All the
It's
time.
so good. People have to re-listen to it. So we couldn't help but immediately be like, Ape, you need to come back.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, I am one of the co-hosts. My name is Amanda Knock,
And I'm Carter Brown.
and we are here with Miss April West today. I have to talk about how and why we're getting into this, though, because our last episode, episode 7, was on triggers. And we were talking about, this really inspired us to realize that all of our triggers stems from, it stems from childhood and also lessons and mirrors. Not every trigger, in my opinion, is a mirror. A lot of them are things that do stem from childhood. We talked about our aversion to mine to milk, Carter's to ketchup, and the things that happen to us to trigger that situation. And now we're triggered by those things. Like, I still don't like milk. I don't even like the smell of it. Gross. I don't even like the name of it. It's just like, I don't like it. So anyways, we were like, you know what? We need to do an episode where we really dive into how do we help the parents? And even if you're not a parent, right? Like, this could be even going as far as healing your inner child to help heal your triggers, but going into it and talking about how do we set the next generation up for success? How do we help them not have to go through what we're having to go through? We're all reading self-help books and listening to podcasts and things like that now that it's really, 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 it's making it hard for us. We're trying to figure it out. Why don't we set our children up so that they don't have to do that?
Mm.
And so
Ugh.
this entire episode was born. We immediately went to April, and April's like, wait a minute. I was just deep diving, like, I'm reading these books. And so we were like, this timing is absolutely perfect.
Perfect.
Some would call it divine timing.
It is divine.
Because the day that I got the text from Carter was the day that I recorded a very similar version of this on our podcast, Moms Off the Record. It was my co-host Kat and I, where we were just talking about the spiritual call to motherhood and what that entails. And then literally an hour later, Carter is texting me like, hey, do you want to come back? And I'm like, hell yeah, because something I wanted to share with your audience is that conversation, episode 3, inspired my blog, where I just want to share all of these things that I'm learning thanks to motherhood, with those who are seeking something similar. And so it's just so beautiful when you are in a state of creation or co-creation with people who are on the same or similar path as you, the fruits of that. And so it's all just a beautiful culmination. So I'm happy to be back, and I'm thrilled to talk about this. This is definitely my wildest passion to date.
I want to quickly say, in regards to your blog, April, it isn't amazing. And there are times where I read it and I'm like, it's a little over my head, I will say,
That was
because
my fear.
it's okay. And I
Yeah.
feel like I'm pretty in tune with stuff. And there are times where I read it and I have to go back and like reread it to try to grasp it. But it is really
Yeah.
incredible how you're able to relay your understanding, because it's so eloquently put and so
Thanks.
profound.
That's one compliment you've always offered me.
You're
So I'm
always very
receiving it.
good
I'm
with your
accepting
words.
it.
You're very,
But
very
I
good with your
think
words.
that's intentional. I think the reason why it's meant to be a little bit, as you said, over your head, maybe complex, is because I do want it to pique the curiosity for somebody to be like, wait, what? Because one thing I found, and this is such a tangent and we'll get into the other stuff, but one thing I found is so much gets lost in translation when we're communicating today. First of all, because our active listening skills are absolute shit, because we are living in a state of distraction. But secondly, because language has become so eroded, with just like people not really understanding what they're saying or casual turn of phrase. And so when I am selecting a word, I really want to bust it open like a seed, and for somebody to come back and be like, wait, what does that actually mean? And spend the time to go do the digging and find what I actually am meaning by that, because that has been my practice of studying sacred text. It's like, wait, what was the original context of this word when it was written thousands of years ago?
I
And
say
then
that all the
what
time.
has it been translated into
Yes.
like 5 or 6 different times? It loses its potency. So that's by design in the blog. It is a little abstract, but it is for those who are seeking a level of depth that you really can't find and satiated in the modern church, if you will. So
Yeah. Now, would you consider yourself like an esoteric Christian?
I don't want to have such an ego to be like, yeah, I'm esoteric, because the whole beauty behind that phrase is that it is a very small gate.
Yeah.
But I am diving deep into the depths of spirituality, and I'm seeing that every sacred text is connected to the same Trinitarian architecture, and it's just through the lens of their space and time, culture, context. And so when you can read sacred texts and understanding the symbolism versus just what is literally being conveyed, it does invite you into the esoteric world.
Well, and when I look at stuff like that, and not that this is our podcast episode, but when I start to look at stuff like that, I'm like, there's no way they wrote this stuff literally. Like, if you look at a lot of the readings, it just doesn't just there's so much. Honestly, that could be an entire episode in
Yeah.
and of itself. And I think maybe we should do
Here's what
that.
I think that is. Here's what I think that is. I think anytime you're trying to conceptualize divine, just by putting it into words, you've already limited it to some degree. And so what I think these, we'll call them prophets or mystics or esoteric followers were trying to do was trying to relate it to something in that context in that day and age. So anytime we're bringing divine down, it's like, okay, we've already tried to put a box around it and we're trying to make sense of it with our own context. So
Hmm.
when I think about, John's understanding of what the heaven looks like with pearly gates and golden, I'm just like, no, that was what that context understood as a kingdom.
Yeah.
But we don't have any way to
And I like that
conceptualize
you're
what that
saying that
divine
because
is.
that actually can leeway into our entire topic because,
Totally.
you said it's based off of his own understanding. And we all
That's right.
develop our understanding. We went over the identity of illusion. Well, our identity is created through generational brainwashing and societal brainwashing and being told who we
Conditioning.
are and conditioning. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's just so much that, like we've talked about before, no matter where you are in the world and when you were born, you're going to translate things very differently.
Yes. So here's what I found. Here's what came through this morning, which is this is like a perfect tee up. I don't think that's bad.
Right.
So when you start to dive into illusion, you start to dive into duality. We tend to do this thing where it's like good, bad, right, wrong, evil versus good, hero versus villain. And that duality, when you see it that way, you're still stuck in the illusion. Because when you are ascending above duality, you don't see it as good or bad. You see it for what it is, the invitation to integrate something further. So when we talk about motherhood, this is what came through this morning for me, is it follows the biblical arc, the narrative arc, which is we start in Eden, right? And in Eden, it's innocence, it's naivete, it's perfect. And then we're exiled because of a rupture, right? So the rupture could be like ego, apple, whatever, sin. The fall isn't bad. The fall is when you are exiled, it's the invitation to repair the rupture that put you in exile in the first place. Okay. Then through your journey of trying to repair the rupture, that's where you're sanctified. That's where you're developed. That's the trials, the tribulations, the fire that refines you. And that is the journey into what Carl Jung calls individuation, or any psychologist today calls individuation, which is when you're trying to become whole as a separate. So you're no longer, at your mother's breast. You're no longer in your mother's home. You're individuating. You're trying to become whole in and of yourself. And then once you do the individuation process and you're completely integrated and whole, some would call it holy, that's when you're back in the union. It's not a place back to Eden because that Eden was naive. You weren't choosing it. You were born into it. So when you get back to what they call the new earth, This is a place of being whole and choosing. You're conscious of being whole. So that biblical arc is a perfect parallel to being a human. It's the human experience, right? Because here's what threw me fucking off the rails this morning. Sorry, my language.
I love it.
Babies are born into coherence. Okay. And what do we mean by coherence? Oh, I'm getting a ringing. This is how I know it's true. Coherence means you're in harmony with your senses, with your patterns, and with your spirit. So think about a baby, right? There is no decoherence. The baby just lives by its own cues. Oh, sensation. I'm hunger. So I'm going to cry. I get mommy's milk. Or I'm lonely. I need connection. I cry. I get mommy's caress. You're living in such a state of presence as a baby. Okay. So you're in a coherent state. Our children are our gifts because they're reminders of that coherence. But here's the part of the human condition is parents are often stuck in a decoherent state. There is something always pulling us out of, disconnecting us, distracting us. Oh, I've got to go to work. Oh, I've got to make that lunch. Oh, I've got to make that, whatever it is that's pulling us out of that coherence. And so what that does is it's projected onto our children. So as we raise our children and we're not coherent, then we're projecting that disconnection, that decoherence on them. And so
Wow.
that is the invitation of motherhood. The sacred calling of motherhood is how can I live more whole and integrated and more present so I can model that coherence for my child? And here's the fun part. You won't. You're destined to fail because failing is the progress, right? It's illuminating the work we have yet to do. So when you talk about, Amanda, this is generational, I agree. And it will continue to be generational if we're unconscious of it. But what we're being called into is the conscious presence of motherhood.
You
And we
know
can
what's
talk more
crazy?
about that.
I'm
But
reading the
yeah.
book, The Biology of Being.
Oh, okay. I've
Okay.
not heard
And
of
he
that.
actually talked about, well, he's a scientist and oh my gosh, I would have to pull all the information up, but I'm just at the end of chapter 2. So like don't at me. And I audible everything because ADHD. But what I will say is he actually made a comment that it's something along the lines of how they were proven DNA isn't just something passed down from your parents. It's a generational thing. And that, I mean, I knew that, but it's validated now by science. It's not woo-woo, it's validated. And yeah, I mean, we are clearly in some kind of calling or awakening in this stage in time because we are all starting to become aware of the thing. Like it's
Yes.
funny how between you and then I have multiple other friends and then Yeshuani, everybody's
I love that you
understanding
love her.
and coming
Yes.
to the same conclusions and they're all separate and they're all saying they're like coming to me and I'm like this something big is about to happen. Something really,
Mm-hmm.
really great is about to happen. And I feel like this episode couldn't have came at a better time because what a better situation and time than right now to set our children's future up for success
Yeah.
from no matter what age they are, right? I've got a 10-year-old, almost 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, and an almost 13-year-old. April's known them for a hot minute. And, I was 23 when I had my children.
Girl.
I did
Your
not know
brain
what
not
I was
even
doing.
done developing
No,
at 23, girl. What
not
the
even
hell?
done. And it's so funny. I used to have a lot of conversations with April because she is somebody I was able to confide in and be like, I feel like I did it wrong because I didn't know. But I've realized through things that that was a part of my journey. Like, had it not been for everything that has happened in my life, I wouldn't be who I am today, had the conclusions that I do. Like, every point in my motherhood journey has led me to be exactly where I am. It's a beautiful butterfly effect. Had I not had my first baby at 23, I wouldn't be who I am. But from that, I did start to understand that how we talk to them young and how we, start setting them up for success really stems from like that immediate age. So, Camden, for example, my oldest child, he's somebody that's always said really odd stuff to us. He actually told us when he was 4 years old, hey, when I died, and I chose you. And he
He is
goes,
not
"Before
wrong.
I died, I had 2 kids." And he would say the craziest thing, and this is when we did not believe in any of this. We were like, "I rebuke this. What are you saying?" We're like,
Yeah,
"What?"
yeah.
But he would say the craziest things. He forgot it not long after, but he had a very insane memory, and he would say and do things that were like, "There is no way this is this child's first go around." And
Mm-mm.
from that moment, had we not had that experience without any knowing, we were able to take that and be like, you know what? Let's help mold this child into the person he is really supposed to be. So he
Yeah.
doesn't have to heal in order to become that person. And at 5 years old, when he said, I want to go to MIT, and mind you, I'm not even a fan of school, let alone college. We were like, you know what? Yeah. He told us at 6, I'm going to be a billionaire. I mean, what child has that dream? We bought him a notebook to write his dreams down and start journaling and creating goals to become that. And so we fed and supported our children. We've helped them understand, like, I don't care about grades. I don't care about attendance. I do not care. All I care about is emotional intelligence. If you're a good person, you have discernment, you have, cognitive thinking skills, but
Yeah.
also
Critical
that
thinking.
you have belief in yourself. That
Yeah.
you know without a shadow of a doubt, you are the creator of your reality to a massive capacity. So, and we tell them and have told them since a young age, which is why I repeat this on every training I do or anything, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. My child says something to me
Mhm.
that talks down on themselves or says, I can't do something. I said, what? I say, no,
Mhm.
we don't talk like that. I said, yeah, you're right. If you don't think you can, then you're right. But guess what? If you think you can, then you're also right. So the rest is up to
Mhm.
you. And we've embedded that in them. And had I not watched, like, what a weird effect from my child telling me, about some weird past life that I didn't even believe in at the time, that created this understanding for us to be like, okay, there's validity here. We've got to figure out how to
Mm.
tap into it.
Yeah.
hmm
What
Well,
you're
so
what you're just oh, go ahead, Carter.
Well, I just wanted to say it's funny right now. Poppy is loving Blue's Clues, and the theme song or the opening song is like, "You can do anything that you wanna do," and like I literally after I'm like, "Hey, they're serious. Like you literally
Yeah.
can do anything that you want to do." And she says her anti-self is frustration, and when she gets frustrated, she says, "I can't do it," and I am constantly pouring into her, being like, "No, we are a can-do household. If you say you can't do it, then you're not going to." But if you say you
Mhm.
can, you can. She's 3. But I know
Mhm.
she's absorbing that and it's going to translate to
Mhm.
later and into, later in life. And so I just think that that's incredible that there's these like things that we're bombarded with as a child. They do these things as kids. They tell you these things that we're saying now, but it doesn't click. No one really gets to them
Yeah.
on the level to be like, "Hey, you really can do anything that you want to do."
Totally agree. It's the difference between speaking life or speaking death over someone. And your child, your voice becomes their inner voice,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
whatever you're saying, it's something I'm so mindful of. And I'm grateful that, unlike Amanda, I had my first child at 32, my only child.
My
32
first
or
child.
31 or something? I don't know. I was in my 30s because you do become aware, and we've talked a little bit about this in the fractal mastery on episode 3, but like you literally do have the creative power within you to design and architect your own reality. And I know that feels very abstract to a lot of people, but it's true. And it starts with embodying the resonance of whatever you're aspiring to. And so I do that. Not only I say that to Eden, but I try to model that myself. So, like in real time, if I'm having a frustrating moment, I'll just be like, I can't do this. And then I'll just be like, no, I can do this. I am doing this. I'm going to be okay. And I'll literally just try to like rewrite it in real time. Um,
Can I say something on that too? Because
yeah.
something that you said that's really powerful is, you're teaching her that a lot of people nowadays, they can't grasp the concept that we can create and be the architects of our own reality because their nervous system does not believe it. Their brain could
Mhm.
try to believe it, but if your nervous system and your brain aren't on the same wavelength, your body's only going to receive what your nervous system feels safe to receive. So that is the importance of being able to teach us from a young age, because guess what? Our nervous systems get dysregulated as a young age, and they don't just magically go back.
Mm-mm.
This is why we're all, most people are going to therapy and have dysregulated nervous systems and trauma and PTSD and things like that. How can we avoid it? How can we set the next generation up for such success that they don't have to heal in this
They
Yeah.
don't
way?
have to listen to this podcast.
Right. I think the challenge is recognizing that the rupture will always come. There will be the state where your child becomes so self-aware and feeling separate. They might start to construct their own identity based on the things that you say and their friends say and your family says all around them. So the rupture will always come, but it's about the repair. And the repair is just as important as the rupture, right? It's like to show you how you can work through any sort of rupture because we live where we are not from this world, we are of this world, right? So naturally, being in this world, it's designed for decoherence and disconnection.
Hmm.
That's the ultimate challenge of being here. So it's a part of the human condition is to experience the rupture. The question is, how are you going to move through it? Like we talked about before, are you going to let this take on your identity and let this control you and move you through your life unconsciously? Or are you going to recognize the rupture? Hey, what is this revealing to me? What am I trying to work through? What is my spirit guiding me through? And see it as an invitation for there. This is about like rising above that duality of this is good or bad, this hurt me. It's like I think everybody on this call and every listener can think back through the lens of their past and be like, shit, that was hard.
Yeah.
But without that perspective and that lived experience, how can you appreciate the richness of the light if you haven't experienced the depth of the dark? So rather than seeing it as good or bad, you see it as this was something there to teach me, to help me ascend. So the difference of we're not going to be able to control our kids' lives, right? Control is the illusion. It's not about control, it's about coherence. So, and it's not about compliance either, which is a really important thing I want to come back to because what I witness out in the wild with parenting is like, you better listen to me. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Get over here now. And it's like, whoa, dude, first of all, would you respond to that if this was your husband talking to you or your best friend talking to you like that? Absolutely not. It's not about having a compliant child. It's about mirroring coherence. And so how do we become coherent? We have to drop back into the present. We have to see the world through the lens of what is this trying to reveal to me? How can I integrate this to become whole? So the rupture will always happen, but the repairs is the important work. The growth is in the repair, not in the rupture.
Yes, and not being so hard on yourself when you do lose it. And that was what made me really
Yes.
understand meditation because it was like, hey, everyone's minds are going to go somewhere when you're meditating. The growth is not getting upset with yourself for letting your mind wander. And so when I realized that connection, I've realized that in every other situation, it's like, I'm going to lose my shit. But it's about the repair. I love the way that you said that, and I love the way you're painting that. So thank you for that.
I know. It
And
is
here's
really
another thing
profound.
I want to challenge you to consider is the answer, what you just said is like, I'm always going to lose my shit. I don't believe that. I think there will be, it's practice, right? So think of these things as like, I'm a visual person. So the pattern in your brain, especially if you come from this long lineage of just unconscious parenting through, your great great greats all the way down into your first parents, if they've lived in an unconscious state, whatever pattern shaped your childhood is going to be the well-worn path in your brain. It's a neural pathway. So when I feel frustration or a loss of control, my kid's not listening to me, I just get angry. I meet them where they're at and I raise my voice and I get chaos and I let it take me over. That's the well-worn path in the brain. But the growth that you just described is recognizing like, oh, that's my pattern. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to try to come down from this first. It's not going to be like, I'm never going to take that path again. It's recognizing that you're in it. We talked about this on episode 3. Then, as you become more aware of that conditioned response, then you can start to see it a lot faster. And you can start to identify it before it ruptures. You feel the heat in your chest and you start to feel your heart rate rise. And you're like, oh, I've been here before, but I don't have to lose my shit. I'm just going to recognize like, hey, I need a pause. I just need to sit this for a second before I react. You grow the length between the stimulus and the response, right? So now you're forging a new neural pathway. It's very, very light indenture in your brain. You're just exploring it. But now, as you start to take that one a little bit more often, that will become the well worn path in your brain. So you don't always have to lose your shit. You will occasionally because, like you said, that's the growth. The failure is the growth. So you can integrate all of it completely, but it doesn't
Recognition
always have
too
to
is
be.
also growth.
Awareness
Recognize.
is
Yeah.
exactly. And
Mhm.
we live in this. I just wrote a Instagram post about this yesterday. It's like we live in this world where we demand perfection. It's exhausting. We're
It
not meant
is.
to be
Yeah.
perfect. That's why we're down here playing on earth. This is the lesson. And so celebrating. I celebrated with Carter before we hit record. I celebrated the fact that the dog was in the garden. She was trying to get with the chickens. Like, okay, I didn't lose my shit. I felt it come up.
You
So I'm
avoided the cortisol
celebrating.
come down, and that's the
That's
goal.
right.
Because, like,
Yeah.
literally, some people, they raise their cortisol and then all day long or the next day, they're still coming down from that. And so it's
You know
about avoiding
why?
that.
It's because they keep replaying it in their brain. Because I was going through all of that this morning, and Hunter was up in his office working, and he didn't get a break from 8 to 11. So I was just like, man, I can't wait to tell Hunter all the shit that I almost did but didn't do. But then I literally caught myself as like, why am I giving life to that? I did it. Move on. Why does my ego need to be heard about that? So yeah, it's about celebrating every little, like you said, Amanda, just the awareness. Celebrate the awareness that you see it, because that means you're no longer living in the unconscious.
It's funny that you mentioned that you're like, I don't feel the need to tell Hunter that I avoided all this because I'm finding myself, I used to like run to my stories to be like, guys, look at the growth that I
Yes.
just had. And now I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't need to
That's
celebrate that.
ego.
Like,
That's ego.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
100%.
Because ego wants to keep you down, right? Because if we continue to feed life, energy is the currency of the world, right? So if we just think about it, whether we're replaying it in our head or we're speaking it out onto the ether because we're on stories, we're still feeding it our energy. So of course we're going to perpetuate it because we're literally feeding it. But if you just break it and recognize like, oh, the ego wants to share this in stories so that the ego hears, hey, Carter, great job today. You avoided being a dumbass in front of your kids. Great job. The ego wants that because the ego wants to keep you. But if we just say, hey, Abe, good job, and then move on, now we're no longer feeding that one. We can feed the new one, which is, hey, you're going to do that next time. You're not going to lose your shit. You're going to get it.
So I
Right?
think from here, would this be something where we talk about how to teach our children to not do emotional express like suppression? Where if
Hmm.
we can teach them to properly express themselves, well, that's
Hmm.
where this is all so deeply layered that I'm like, how do we leeway in to these
Yeah.
incredible teachings and understanding?
So I'll take a stab at this. I think we focus less on, and this was in Dr. Sheffiely's work. I don't know if you had a chance to read her book, The Conscious Parent, but we tend to think that as parents, it's our job to create this human, to shape this human. We're meant to steward their unfolding. And we steward their unfolding by creating a coherence. And I've used this term a lot. I want to define it because there are a lot of different definitions of this. And I have this written down because I wanted to remember. Coherence means alignment, wholeness, and harmony. In the Vedic scriptures, like old ancient Buddhist and Hindu understanding, this word is called rita, which is when you're in cosmic harmony with nature, with God, with each other. That's Rita, okay? Spiritual coherence could be defined when you're in right relation with God and each other. That's what righteous means. You know, when you read the Bible, it's like your righteousness, and it's a really unfortunate word because it really just means living in right relation, okay?
Wow.
Biologic coherence is what you're talking about, Amanda, which is your nervous system being in that alignment, that harmony with itself and with it mirrored in others, right? Because you can pick up on somebody's nervous system. That's by design. So when you think about coherence from either a spiritual lens, a biological lens, or a harmony just within your family unit, that's all we're called to do. Because when we do that, then we can steward the unfolding of a child to explore his or her feelings, because there's a really safe environment where I can be in harmony. And we want to maintain a harmonic vibration, right? It's called homeostasis, right? We want to maintain whatever level we're at. So if you as the parents are trying your damnedest to build a harmonious, just even in your family circle, don't worry about solving the world. It'll ripple out to that later, just in your family. Then your child's going to want to ride that wavelength. And so let's imagine your child disrupts that holy harmony by having an outburst, or because she's not eating all of her protein. You better eat all of your dinner. And so she starts to get decoherent. She's starting to just vibrate. Our job isn't to vibrate with her and yell at her and demand her to eat her peas and carrots. It's to hold the space, getting back to harmony. Hey, it seems like you're not really interested in eating the chicken. Is there something wrong with the chicken, or are you just not hungry? You're trying to meet her. You're trying to understand her. You're trying to witness her. You're trying to see and hear her, right? So as parents, we tend to overcomplicate everything. But I think our number one calling is to build the harmony, the Rita, the righteousness within our family. And when we can do that, then we can help, like you said, the expression. I'm not going to feel afraid of being upset or angry, because I know my parents, my family are going to hold that and help me work through it.
That makes me want to cry. That's so beautiful. It's so
Isn't
funny
it?
you say that because very soon I'm gonna have a really cool testimonial for you guys. But something that stood out that I was told by somebody who is very much thinks like you as well, April. She said that the ultimate way of living in a family. I mean, how do I put this? She's like, it's ultimate peace living that way
It
with your
is.
family.
Yeah. But here's the decades, millennia of conditioning that is unfortunately what our generation, I think, has come to disrupt, which is all of our parents, I shouldn't say all, that's really overgeneralization. Many of our parents were not raised in such a way where they, A, felt the harmony in the household, or B, had a safe place to explore the disharmony in a safe way, like in a comforted way. And so you'll see patterns of parenting of like, I'll give you something to cry about. It's like, oh gosh, that doesn't make me want to feel anything in front of you. So then we
Yeah.
have children who grow up into adults who don't know how to safely express any emotion. And that manifests in all
Well, they
kinds
were
of weird
hit and
shit.
beat for expressing
Yeah,
emotion. And then we've been conditioned and brainwashed to believe that spanking creates discipline human
it does
beings. And
not.
it's just like,
It
how
just
does
creates
hitting someone
fear,
create the hate?
a
Well,
fear response.
and
Uh-huh.
fear is like one of the lowest vibrations. And
Well, I think
imagine,
what did it in for me with spanking was the Harvard study that it triggers the same part of the brain as sexual assault. And as soon as I realized that, I said the cookie is crumbling for me on that.
Yeah.
So, no way God created you to experience that, fear the rod, but it triggers the
No.
same part of your brain that sexual assault does. So,
well,
Oh,
and
that
then the
scripture
brain,
long
there's so much here there. That right. Well, that's what, isn't the, oh my gosh, why can't I think of the word?
prefrontal cortex.
No, the
amygdala.
No, the wavelength your brain is in from birth to 7. It starts with an H. I can't think of it right now. I've said it before.
Yeah.
It's like a state of hypnosis, though, where you're taking it like that is the mold. Say you have like a completely, untouched brain. This is the time where it's being molded, truly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
gosh, yeah, I mean,
I want to touch on that because that's a scripture my sister uses all the time, like spare the rod, spoil the child.
mhm.
If I can just go down here, that doesn't mean spanking your kid. Okay, when you think about a shepherd, right? And if you're a Christian, Christ is the shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, right? A shepherd, if you visualize what a shepherd has in his hand, it's a rod. It's usually like a staff that has kind of like a hook.
Mhm.
So when a sheep, who are not very brilliant animals, wander off from the pack and let's say they're going to go tumbling off the hillside, the shepherd will just take the rod and pull him back into the group. He's not spanking the sheep. The sheep would jump off the hill. So the rod is not about punitive. What does it mean to discipline? It comes from the word disciple, which is teach. We're meant to teach our children. We're not meant to spank them into compliance. Because when you have a child who fears a spanking, yeah, you'll get compliance because nobody wants abuse. Okay, I'll forego my own will and my wishes because I don't want dad to spank me. But that compliance doesn't teach you anything to prepare you for the real world, does it? Because without that fear, first of all, now that child's just not going to do what he wants to do in front of you. That's even more dangerous. I want somebody who's going to stick their hand into the cookie jar in front of me, because then I can help you understand, like, hey, that's not a really good idea right now. If you're doing it behind me, now I don't know how you're hurting yourself. So, spare the rod, spoil the child does not mean that you should spank your child. It means that you should help teach them and protect them from harming themselves. So,
Wow. I'm
just wanted
really
to
glad
harp on
you
that.
elaborated on that actually, because
Yes.
that was
Thanks.
really good. And it's funny you say
Yeah.
that because I do have a real life example. I'm going to not say names or anything specific, but there were people that I grew up with and their parents were very strict in a way that the second they had the opportunity, the rebellion that
Mm-hmm.
happened was absolutely insane. And I was old enough to be aware that I was like, oh my gosh, I'll never be strict on these levels with my children this way because it's the pushback. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
natural thing that happens because you're prevented from learning lessons that you needed to learn. So it's like your soul's trying to cram it all in at once the second you have the freedom to do so.
Yeah. This is a term that I came across only in Gabor Mate's work, but I don't know where it comes from beyond there. I'm sure it's an idea that's widely understood, but it's this idea of oppositional force, and it is woven into a trauma response through human behavior. So what you just described of that rebellion is just literally neurological. And did you know that it's more of um, a stronger force for those who have ADHD, ADD?
Wow. No.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
That makes
So
really
doesn't
big
it? I
sense.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not by the way, oppositionality is not a problem to fix. It's a natural kind of protective force. Anytime it's like, two negative ends of a magnet. When you push them together, it's like, ooh, they push apart. So the more and more you're trying to come at this from a force, the more oppositional power you're going to experience. And that's why there's that rebellion.
That actually makes so much sense. I'm having some realizations myself. I was spanked and I had a
Same.
supreme rebellion in my
Mm-hmm.
life. And for
Mm.
you to point out the whole thing about, okay, I just will start doing it behind your back. And that's exactly what I did. I was like, okay, I just won't do it in front of you. I
Mm-hmm.
will continue the behavior. I didn't know why it was happening. Now I can not necessarily blame myself, but something happened interesting with Poppy the other day. She, I don't know, maybe wanted to get another snack or something. And she was like, hey, can you turn around? I said, why?
Interesting.
She was like, I said, why do you want to get that thing? And she said, yeah. I said, you can do anything in front of me, sweetie. You don't have to
Yeah.
hide and do things for me. You can ask me, like, do you want that? And, I could have, would I have given it to her? I don't know, but I could have been like, hey, we could try something else. But the main thing was about, hey, you don't ever have to hide anything from me.
Mm-hmm.
Because first of all, I'm going to know because I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to get the download about it. But,
Well, and most people wouldn't respond that way because the ego greatly can get
mm,
in the way of parenting and circumstances like that, where it's like, well, because of how you just handled that, why would I like knowing that you're going to hide this from me and that it feels like a lie? Despite that, in spite of that situation,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where like ego parenting can then create a ripple effect of
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
I know what's best for you.
Perpetuating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perpetuating. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No,
Like it's
Exactly.
I'm honoring things like that. I'm like, hey,
I
the
good
love
fact
for
that
that.
you,
you.
even last
You're
night.
witnessing.
Yes, this is a tangent, but last night the housekeeper was here and she rearranged some stuff in the pantry and there was a grape juice front and center in the pantry now. And Puppy was like, "Hey, what's that?" I said,
Mhm.
"It's a grape juice for when we have stomach bugs. It's for emergencies." She's like, "I really want some." I said, "I know, but it's for emergencies. Like, I don't want to open it right now." And she sat there and she thought, she goes, "I have an emergency." I go,
That's right.
"You
She's
know
so
what? You
smart.
can go get the
Smart.
cup right now," because I loved that. Like, the fact
Yeah.
that you thought
She's
that, I was like,
connecting dots.
yeah, yeah. And
So
I'm not gonna
important.
like diminish that. The fact that she connected that, I said, "Hey, that was really clever, and I'm gonna honor that for you." And I gave her
What's
a
really
glass of
Yeah.
grape
cool
juice.
is that you fed into it once she connected the dots instead of broke her down to remove the connection.
Exactly.
Mhm. You're
And that
celebrating.
is what
Mhm.
we need to pay attention to. So
That
many
right.
people, like I hear all the time, my child wants to do this instrument or this sport, but like I don't want them to do that. And it's like,
Why? The question is always why. What is your ego holding you back from?
right. Like Cruz is, talking about, I want to do cheerleading. And I'm like, hell yeah. I think that's amazing.
That would be
Guy
so
Yeah.
cheerleader,
good
like
for
that would
Cruz.
be so great. I mean, he's literally
Yeah.
practices on the trampoline all day. He's also
Yeah.
like, I want to play violin. And I mean, that's weird for me because not once have I, like, he's been showing interest in violin for the last year, but they've been so busy with their current sport. We haven't had an opportunity. And now he bugs me and he's like, I really want to be in violin, mommy. And we're like,
Yeah.
That's
what
so
a unique
sweet.
thing. I've never
This
played
is so
violin.
good. This is touching on Dr. Sheffiely's whole point of her conscious parenting book, which is like, we are not here to control the outcome of our child. We are here to let them unfold. And so sometimes when we're like, I don't want him to be a cheerleader, that's for girls, or violence for nerds, it's a projection of our own ego. So,
Yeah.
what is unhealed in you, parent, that makes
Mhm.
you think that there's some sort of shame tied into boy cheerleaders or playing the violin? And by the way, don't suppress that.
Yeah.
That's the ping into your conscious, to your deep subconscious of being like, hey, there's something here that has yet to be integrated. Let's explore it. Because that's the problem with the parents, is the parents don't want to do the untidy, difficult work of integrating whatever they've long suppressed. Okay.
Yeah.
And it will always, always, always point back to some shadow that you're harboring from long ago. So, the parents, you have the most important job. There's such a healing element to becoming a parent. If you're willing to set your ego aside and say, I am not whole, I am harboring some shadow, there is something I need to heal. And by recognizing those pings into your subconscious of like, boop, 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 what is this telling you? Explore that.
Well, what's
Right?
really cool about that and what you're saying and these lessons and these things we're talking about is while we are helping guide our children, they are equally teaching us.
That's exactly right. They're teaching us because they're more coherent than we are most of the
Mhm.
time. Unfortunately, our human condition, the culture conditioning that's happening around here is constantly trying to
Mm.
disintegrate and disconnect children. I think it's an absolute shame that mothers have somehow believed that it is a good idea to send your children away in their most formative years for
Yeah.
8 to 10 hours a day with under the care of somebody you don't even know. You don't know their philosophies, you don't know their childhood experience, you don't know the shadows they're harboring, and somehow we've convinced ourselves that that's a good idea. And then we get the crumbs of that human experience when they're going to bed or having
Well,
a
it's even
one
crazier to
meal.
me that society has done it to where it starts at like 6 weeks old now.
Oh my gosh.
It
It's
breaks my heart. I
such a
mean, especially in
shame.
the USA where maternity leave is
It's
like 6 weeks.
bullshit. Yeah,
That's
it's crazy.
insane. Especially, and my thing is, and I hope nobody takes offense to this, but My thing with this is society has conditioned you to think that's the only way to make a safe income, and that is not true. People are becoming millionaires overnight by utilizing a device that is constantly in your hand, whether you go to a 9 to 5 or not. You do not have to do direct sales to make money. You can literally do so many things. You guys, I have gotten on the side of TikTok where they are like, and not to go off on this because this has nothing to do with this, but they're like, if you're not just posting your videos, you're missing out on thousands of dollars. And they
Mm,
are not wrong. Like, you don't
mhm,
have to sell anything. You can quite literally just show up and be you. And yes, it's going to take some time, consistency, and work, but it pays off.
mhm.
If that's a situation you're in where it's a choice of like, I have to go to work in order to provide, there are other ways outside of what society has conditioned us to believe. We have created a society where they enslave you from
That's
6
right.
weeks old.
Well, that's
It's
all that school
distraction.
is to prepare you for the 9 to 5.
Right.
That's
That's
all
why
it
it
That's
looks
right,
and
is.
and
feels like a prison.
to crush
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
spirit, to crush your coherence,
Now, I want
and
to
that
say
it
something on that though, really quick, because I've been a homeschool mom. I see it from the every perspective, every perception. And my children, after being homeschooled this year, begged to go to a school, and I had a really hard time with it. And so we chose a private school, and there are some things that I have done that I'm grateful for the experience they're getting now. They love it. If they didn't absolutely love it and ever complained, they wouldn't have to be there. But the friendships that they're creating, but here's what's cool is it's constantly when we're getting stuff from teachers, because my kids have been homeschooled for years, they had to integrate back into something like this. And what's really neat is Chris and I have formed such an alliance and a team that if we're getting told they haven't done this or they're missing stuff, we don't care. And I know that's not popular, but we don't care. We're like, your grades don't define you. Your missing work or a lost book doesn't define you. The fact that you didn't meet a specific goal doesn't define, like, these do not define you. You're going to school because you want to and for friendships, and that's okay. And
so here's an important distinction about that.
yeah,
You told us your children are 10, 11, and 12.
right. They're
You
not
also
young.
mentioned the first critical years are 0 to 7, and you talked about it. I don't know what brainwave you were thinking about, but what I do know is that predominantly the right brain is flourishing at that age because it governs emotion, body awareness, like proprioception, like where you take up time and space, relational attunement. Children can't calm themselves because they need you to co-regulate.
Right.
So when you're ripping the imperative connection of mother-baby, the mother-baby
Oh, yeah,
dyad,
no.
right?
Yeah.
When you rip that, when there's a disconnection there, you're just setting their little right brain to just shrivel up. This is the most neuroplastic time of their life is 0 to 7. Critical growth happens here. And then it's a pruning off of whatever's not being fed. So whatever you're not feeding in that
They're in the
brain
delta
development.
wavelength. Delta
Delta.
wave.
Okay.
That's what I was
Okay.
the brain 0 to 7. Wait, no, no, no. That's not true.
Uh,
I'm trying to
okay.
find this. I'll find it.
I don't know about it, and I don't know how critical that is to know, other than the right brain is all about connection, and
Yes.
connection is more important than logic in 0 to 7
It was very important
because
for
you're,
us to keep our kids home during that age. Like, I never left them. Yeah.
yeah, and your children are desperate to be loved. And remember what we talked about last time is Carl Thompson says that to love is to know and be known. So when you're not there, the majority of the day, you don't know or can be known by your child, then the love isn't, I hate to say this so definitively, the love isn't there the way it's designed to,
I
right? It's
wonder
0 to
how
7.
that I wonder if there's any studies talking about the, like, disconnection,
100%. This
because
is
there has
the
to be a massive disconnection. I mean,
attachment theory.
Well,
because
they
I
start
have
relying on their friends instead of their parents.
like, I have such
Yeah.
an attachment to my children that I'm like, I want them home. Like, we have been so excited for summer. They love school. I mean, any day that they were like, we don't want to go, we're like, okay, perfect. Like, we love this.
Yeah.
We don't like
They're
being away from them. Um, and I can't imagine not feeling that way, but like, I do see stuff where I'm like, I don't relate to how easy it is to just like be gone all the time. I don't
No.
understand.
And not know what she's doing all day or what she's being told, what she's
Exposed to,
hearing.
yeah.
Yeah. Or if somebody's just like having a bad, frustrating day and they lash out, I can do that, but I sure as hell don't want to witness somebody else doing that. So that first 7 years is so critical. So I think if you develop the secure attachment, you develop that co-regulating nervous system, you plant the seed in their brain that they are safe, that they are heard, that they are seen, that they are known, then they can safely open. Babies are like always looking to you, and then about 3 they start to look out to the world. And so if they're not secure and they're doing that, it's going to be a whole host of problems there. So, not to harp on
No.
sending your kids to school or daycare or a nursery, but I know culture has conditioned us to believe that this is the model, but we have to ask ourselves, why is this the model? What are
Well,
they
it's
trying to
conditioned us to
perpetuate down
believe
here?
everything. Then that's why we started the
Disconnection.
podcast. Complete
That's
Yeah,
right.
disconnection.
seriously.
That's the
Disconnection,
entire point
decoherence.
of this,
They're
is that
normalizing that.
they're normalizing it and we're like, no, it is time to, wow, I got choked up there. It is time to call it out as loud as we possibly can on every level, because this is so layered. Like you said, and we've talked about so many times, so many people think things are black and white, and they're not. They're gray. There is
There's
too
nuance in
much
everything.
Everything. That's
everything.
huge. Now, we talk about like all of this is beautiful, abstract concept, but if you're a parent, then you know that it's really hard to live this out. So, what I wanted to offer is some tips for almost self identifying as you're listening to this, things that are evidence of your decoherence. Because if we have simplified parenting, that our only primary most prominent responsibility is to maintain a harmonic environment at home. That's our number one job, maintain coherence. Okay, cool. What happens when you are in a state of decoherence, and how do I know? And these are things, if you look at the kind of consciousness pyramid, I think you've seen how different feelings are different frequencies, and you had mentioned like fear and shame are at the bottom. Anything that resembles the bottom of that pyramid, right? So ego is number one. If you're parenting from a place of ego, turn the mirror inward and ask, like, what is this showing me? Control. This is the lesson that I think a lot of us type A, like scattered minds, really try to cling to, because it feels comfortable being in control, but it's an illusion. You're not in control. And when you recognize that, you're going to grow, you're going to ascend. And then shame and guilt, right? Like if you're living in a state where you're often feeling shame or guilt, those are signals, by the way. Remember, ping, 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 to go explore where they're coming from. But those are evidence of being in a state of decoherence.
Wow.
So I just wanted to offer that. And then I can give an anecdote because I'm not perfect and I am parenting consciously. Everybody can resonate with the fact that like when you're just already on a short fuse and then there's just a lot of noise, there's a lot of calamity in the household. It's like, damn it, you slam your fist. I had that emotionally. I didn't have the slam the fist, but it was with Eden and Mabel. And Mabel is our 6-month-old puppy. Eden's 2.5. And so it's like, I know you love Mabel, but you can't try to rip her ears off of her head. That doesn't feel good, right? And because I'm not parenting from a place of fear or compliance or anger or punitive measures, if she's doing something that's harming herself or harming someone else, the solution is separation. So we were watching whatever, Love on the Spectrum, and Eden and Mabel are like rumbling around in the living room like WWE. And Eden's like yanking on Mabel's ears to where she yelped. And I was like, okay, Eden, mommy's explained to you that you cannot harm, right? It's about being in Rita, that harmony. You cannot harm someone else or something else. Mabel's a living creature. You're having a hard time controlling yourself. So I'm going to take you upstairs. We're going to go to bed early. And it was like, holy hell no, she didn't want to do that. Like screaming and just like full performative tantrum, which I understand because I was that child too. So here's how you repair that, because you are the reason that she has gone into the tantrum, right? because you're pulling her from the separation. Trying to be logical with her right now while her brain's in a state of dysregulation is not going to work. So you have to co-regulate with your nervous system, meaning don't get up there even though you really want to lose your shit because you're chaotic and it's crazy. You stay down and you breathe. Okay, so I literally pick her up. We go upstairs. I put her in the bathroom and she's still screaming like a squeal. And so I'm like, and I just start breathing by myself and I'm holding her. And I'm doing this for me. I'm reparenting me in the process of it's okay to feel dysregulated, but let's calmly bring ourselves down. And then you do reflective listening. This is such a cool hack. Okay, so Eden's calmed down a little bit. She's still, she's still upset, but she's not squealing anymore. So I sit down and you get on their level because it's about being known and knowing. And I have to literally see myself through her eyes of how she must feel. I don't want to be domineering and lecturing. I want to be on her level. I see you, I hear you, I'm in it with you. And then you just walk through the whole experience, but through their lens of the experience. So you were having a really good time with Mabel playing, right? Yeah. Okay. And when you started playing a little too rough, did you hear Mabel yelp? Yeah, I hurt Mabel. Do we hurt our family or our friends? No, we don't hurt living creatures. That's right. Okay, so mommy had to take you away from Mabel to separate you. And that probably made you feel sad because you were having such a good time with me. Yeah. And you literally, with reflective listening, you're trying to mirror back to them everything they've experienced. So you're naming their emotions and you're showing that you understand their experience until you get to the end of it. So you can no longer name or relate to whatever just happened, right? So mommy had to pull you upstairs and you probably weren't really ready to go to bed. So you probably felt a little frustrated about that. Yeah. Okay. Do you understand now that you're done with the why? It's like why mommy had to separate you. So and then you tell them what you did to help repair it. So mommy brought you here and we breathed together, didn't we? And then you know what she literally does? And I was like, holy shit, my 2.5-year-old just breathed like a deep breath to help regulate herself. That was so healing for me because had I had a mother who saw my torment and saw how I was just always in a state of fear, but helped me to express my emotions in a safe place, like imagine if we had that kind of parenting. The point is not perfection. The rupture will always be there, but the repair, this is how you work through a repair. And then eventually, you get through the end of the reflective listening exercise. You've mirrored all of her feelings back to her. You've given her language to put around her feelings: frustration, disappointment, sadness, connection. It ends with the positive. I just wanted to leave that as an anecdote of how to work through something. And also, like, it's a co-regulation. You're doing it for them and they're doing it back for you. When she breathed that deep breath into my chest, I was like, Lord, this is
Well,
a holy sanctifying moment for us.
and that creates emotional intelligence.
That's right. That's right.
And I feel like
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest blessings that somebody could have is emotional intelligence.
Making sense of what they're feeling because they're going to feel a whole lot of weird shit in this world.
Yeah.
And if they don't have the language or the tools to work through it, it's going to be really tricky.
Well, and
Well, I
if
So,
think
you're not
about when like Poppy will ask me things and I'm like, I love that she has the ability and feels free enough to ask me that because I thought
yeah.
back of like when I was a kid, I internalized everything. I was just observing and never asking questions. Hey, why is that person doing that? She will always ask me, hey, why is that person wearing their hat like that? And I get to explain
Mm-hmm.
to her, hey, they were in that because of this, whatever. But I
Mm-hmm.
internalized all that. And so the ability that she is asking me these questions tells me that I feel like I am fostering that ability for her to explore
Mm-hmm.
her reality and feel comfortable enough to bring me into it to help her get a picture of it as well.
And what a grave responsibility that is
Yeah.
because you're helping her make sense of the world. So you have to be so cautious about how you even define things because that becomes the way that they see the world. And so that's like to tie it back to that dualism, the duality. Like we have to rise above the good or the bad, the evil or the hero or the villain or whatever. We have to rise above that and just see like the person's wearing that hat because that's their expression of their fashion. or
Well, it's
whatever.
funny, this memory just came across. We were walking in the parking lot and someone was wearing something that did not look right, okay? Like, and Poppy recognized that. And instead of, I caught her before she even said it. I was like, hey, they're just individualizing and self-expressing themselves. That's why they wanted to
Mhm.
wear that. Isn't that cool that they feel comfortable enough to wear that and be okay with, expressing themselves? And she reframes instead of thinking of it as a weird thing. She's like, it's really cool. I like that
Mhm.
about them, you know? And I just loved
Yeah.
that.
And when you can see everything through the lens of the opportunity to integrate, there is such a freedom about walking around this world with such compassion. Because what if I see somebody wearing something that I would say is like out of place or what I would quote as weird? I'm like, this is somebody who is eager to be loved. And remember, Carl Thompson said to love is to be known and to know. So this person is so hungry for a rich connection that they're doing something that kind of seems out of the mainstream because they're like, hey, I need something. So the best thing we can do is feed it. Hey,
Compliment
what
it.
a cool outfit. Tell me more about that hat you're wearing. Because the time that you can reflect the love, like we're called to do. Remember, I tested you last time. It's like our commands, if you're a faithful person, is to love thy God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. So if we show the compassionate love to that person wearing a funky outfit or a weird hat, and we reflect that love versus being like meeting it with what the fuck is that person wearing? You know? It's that's what we're called to do. "Hey, man, tell me more about that hat, it's so funky." And it's like, oh, they're seen. They
Yes.
feel an invitation to be known. That's what this is all about.
How cool is that? I feel like there's like 1.5 million lessons
I
packed
know.
into 1 hour, and it's so good. And
It's a lot.
I do want to say really quick that you mentioned 2 books that you love, and one is the 7 Spiritual Laws for Parents by Deepak Chopra,
Super good. Yep,
and
Chopra.
The Conscious Parent by Dr.
Sabari.
Sabari. Thank you.
Huh? Yeah.
I so I wanted to say those before we got off because I know they
Yeah.
inspired a majority of the episode and
Totally.
were highly recommended. And, I want to invite you guys because we try to leave every episode with like an invitation or, an idea or a prompt or something like that. I want to invite you to reflect on what is one belief that you inherited that you're choosing not to pass down.
Mm, the conscious work. Can I
The
add one
conscious
more
work.
thing?
Please.
And you can say no. Okay.
Yes, you can always add
There's
one more thing.
There's a challenge that parents of toddlers or teenagers, preteens, who will recognize, which is like, I want you to listen to me. Listen to me on the first time. I'm doing this because I know better, whatever. It's really difficult to parent from a place where you don't do the shaming, you don't do the fear-based tactics of either spanking or threatening a timeout. A timeout is like the worst thing we can do to our kids, y'all. If they're out of it, they're in a funk and you're like, I can't stand you being like this, so get away from me. It teaches them like, oh, I'm not allowed to. So if ever you need to do a timeout, by the way, you always do the timeout with them. But the challenge of Toddlerville for me is like, how do I get Eden to do what I want her to do without using those punitive measures? Because it's usually something she doesn't want to do. And Charlotte Mason, who's like the grandmama of homeschooling wisdom, tells you that your job is to steward or foster the spirit and the will of the child. So if we're doing things that are going to crush their will, then we're not doing what we're called to do. And when we like spank or when we threaten a timeout or some sort of punishment, we're inevitably crushing their will. And so something I've really been trying to meditate on is her wisdom. And I'm not going to say it the way she does, but you can get your child to do anything if you can creatively will it out of them. So I just want that to be the prompt that I leave listeners with is like, next time you're trying to really force your child into doing something that they don't want to do, that they need to do, how can you get so creative that you will it out of them so it's their idea? You know what I mean?
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's
Okay.
Because
amazing.
when it's their idea, they're like, all right,
I
yeah.
look at this. Yeah. I gave an example of when Eden about 6 months ago, she was just 2, and I wanted her to get in the car seat because we had to go. We had to go to swim practice. And she was just like standing up, turning around in her car seat. And I'm just like, oh my God, I want to get the fuck out of here. Another thing is we have to slow way down. But I was like, hey, Eden, can you sit in your car seat? And she's like, no. And I was like, okay, don't crush her spirit, April. So then I was like, hey, Shushu was her baby doll. It's like, hey, look, Shushu's ready to go swimming, but she can't go swimming if we can't get there in the car. How do we make sure that Shushu is safe in this car ride? And she's like, oh, she needs to sit in the car seat. I'm like, oh, can you show her how to safely sit in the car seat? And you know what? She turned around, sat down, and even buckled the first 2 straps. And I was like, hell yeah, I did it. I won, you know? So it's just about being super creative.
Well, it's
And
that slowing down
the
and that
Mhm.
slowing
pause to figure
down,
out instead of
yes,
the reaction and the reactiveness,
to
which,
control,
when I was a young mom, I mean, that is what came naturally to me because I hadn't
totally.
developed that understanding.
Yes,
And it's hard to have this awareness now
yes.
and look back on things. But at least,
It was
I feel
all
like
by design.
it is all by design. And it's funny because we're all coming at this from different life experiences
That's
and
right.
childhoods and upbringings and perspectives, but all coming to the same exact conclusions.
Exactly.
And that is the
Cool.
most profound, beautiful
So good.
thing.
Yeah,
This was
thanks.
amazing.
This was
Thank you
so
for doing this
good.
with us
I'm
again.
happy. I'm happy to come anytime you girls want.
Oh my
April,
God.
where can we find you?
Well, I'm still at Call Me Mrs. West on Instagram. I've completely killed my website and rebuilt it. It's like a brush fire, if you will, just burned the whole thing to the ground and started new. So if you're somebody who is exploring your faith and you think that there's more to it, the answer is there is more to it. And I explore that on embracingeden.com. It's for the seekers, the spiritual seekers. So I have a blog there. And then I just started sharing some recipes because I'm also equally passionate about like healing your body with food as medicine. And I'm somebody who grew up on some ultra processed shit. Amanda knows this full well.
I do. I do. She
So
got
I'm
so mad at
sharing
me when I
that.
pointed out some poofas
Uh-huh.
in her pantry one time.
Yeah, poofas in the pantry. I'll leave my poofas alone. And then over at Moms Off the Record pod on Instagram and the same website is where we're doing all the things about mother baby connection. So if you want to explore that, if this resonated
So
in some way,
good.
go explore
And
that.
So
I
Our
do
good.
want to
latest
say,
episode will be on this. Yeah.
Love that.
I just love the
Yeah.
connection between everything and
Yeah.
what you're doing. And
Coherence.
honestly, I cannot, like, if you're somebody that is ready to dive deeper into the understanding of, I mean, honestly, I don't even know what word to put on it, but April's blog is very good.
Thank you.
And if you're like, oh my gosh, this is a lot to process or I'm not fully grasping it, I think we should do a whole episode on understand
Mm,
the breakdown, the fragmented breakdown of
Ooh, I just got
things.
chills.
yes, I
That is a
love
good
that.
one.
I've been
Yeah.
wanting to
Yeah.
do it anyways, and I actually think this would be a fun up and coming episode if we did it with a couple other people too. And we did a round
Okay.
table talk about it.
Love.
But we have a lot of amazing things in store to come. Wait till you see who one of our next guests are going to be. Like, we are about to blow it out of the water. We're getting deeper and deeper and deeper as we go. Like we always say, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to us. We wouldn't be here without you. And we love you
Thanks,
guys
y'all.
so much. See you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.